All right, everybody, welcome to another week of BICP Talks with Travis. This week, we are talking in depth about incident reports and SOAP notes, which are not maybe the craziest intriguing topics of the work that we do, but they are definitely super important. So my goal for tonight is just drive a deeper understanding of this paperwork and how we can use that as a way to protect our participants and protect ourselves as we go. So we're going to do a quick overview of the general uses and intentions behind the incident reports and SOAP notes, uh, talk about the information that we want to make sure we're gathering, and then how we can use that information to either continue to provide care for our patients or pass them on to definitive care when the time comes. And definitely, like Terry and Matt, I'm excited to hear how you guys have used these in the past and what you found to be helpful and not helpful, because we were talking a little bit before I got the recording going, and sometimes incident reports don't really, like generic ones, don't necessarily grasp the sport that we're working in. And that can make things challenging. So I think, throwing out some suggestions of little things that you've done to change yours would be super welcome. So feel free to jump in whenever. Uh, so in general, like the incident reports are going to be our, like summation of what has happened. So that's what I'm breaking out in the event of a crash, like during the course. And maybe I'll be providing additional care, but maybe not after that initial setup. So I'll get that going after the scene is stable and everything. What will be important within your organization is establishing when these need to be completed. Because sometimes when we're working, for example, I worked with the national park a lot when I was in West Virginia, and their definition of a reportable injury is if an ambulance needs to be called or if a rescue needs to be initiated. And there's a lot of injuries where, that it doesn't get to that level. So definitely have some clear instructions about for your organization, for your guides, about when to complete them. And it can be really tough. Like my general rule of thumb is if I'm taking out my first aid kit for more than just like an emotional band-aid for a kid, if I'm taking it out and actually providing first aid, that's going to be when I will be completing an incident report for that. There are a few main categories of incident reports, and I know that there's variations between organizations and that sort of thing, but very often it's set up as like a near miss type incident, a minor incident, major incident, or a fatal incident, or like vehicular sometimes is in there as well. But the minor and major incidences are pretty easy to define. Like if you have a participant take a pedal to the shin where it's not bleeding excessively, they're not in tons of pain, that could potentially be just a minor injury. Anytime we have like excessive bleeding, broken bones, and anytime we have an impact to the head in a crash, definitely a major incident. And that is going to be kind of important for your record keeping. But one that I want to talk, oh, and fatal is clear by the definition, I'd say. Um, so the near miss incidences are kind of tricky and complicated. So, I mean, there's been moments in the programs that I've been leading, and like I'll see a participant, almost go off a trail and like get all sketchy and have to put their feet down so they don't like dismount down the side of a steep slope. And when I see those types of things, like it could have been bad. It wasn't. It was fine. Like everyone, no injuries at all. But seeing that sort of stuff made me think differently about that section of trail, and it changed how I coached that trail section. So if I notice things in a program that caused me to change my behavior from a safety management standpoint, a near miss incident report or a near miss would be a good way to categorize that. And typically these things are um, very underreported because oftentimes it's like, this guide noticed this thing, but wasn't that big of a deal, so they just kept going. And then this other guide has maybe less awareness about what happened in that section of trail and that sort of thing. So filing that as a near miss and then instructing, being able to review those annually, or share them with the other coaches that you're working with, can be a good thing to help us all like learn how to manage the venues that we're working at a little bit better. So definitely those are for sure important. Yeah,
I like that. I wouldn't put that, like I said, I'm hospital based, so I wouldn't put that in an incident report, but that might be a nice internal log to keep,
totally.
not as an incident, but yeah, I like that.
And like this type compared to like responding to a, injury, or an illness or anything, this is something that I'm more likely to fill out when I get back to the home base or whatever. It's not something that I'll like stop on the trail and do it.
Right.
As long as I can remember where that space is. But yeah, for that works really well for internal use. And
Yeah.
in the event that there's an incident that a patient, or the participant ends up bringing a lawyer into it and everything, having those additional, like, hey, here's like what we've been paying attention to on this trail, and here's how we've been managing the risk associated with that, as a way of protecting yourself, can be powerful, for sure.
Yeah, I like that.
Excellent. And then just quick overview of the SOAP note. So I would use a SOAP note at times, definitely at times if I'm going to be caring for that patient for more than the next hour or so. And depending on the severity of the injury, the SOAP note becomes more important the longer you're with the patient. And then also if it's to the point where you need to hand it off to, you're calling an ambulance and meeting the ambulance at the trailhead type thing. And what's going to go in there? So it's broken down into, it's an acronym. SOAP is subjective, objective, your assessment, and then your plan. And so we'll bust out some examples of these in just a minute, but it's like a summation of the injury, the illness, the mechanism of injury, like what you see caused it, objective details about, vital signs, all that sort of stuff, and your plan, like if you are, like if I was continuing to care for them, we would check, we would check those vitals, every, this amount of time, depending on the condition of the patient, and all that sort of stuff. And I think like the big thing with the SOAP note is that when we're responding to an incident, it can be hard to make all of that happen. So if you have other participants there, the SOAP note is it's just a bunch of notes about what you're going to do to keep this patient, getting the care they need. And so that's definitely something that, I might give my SOAP note with to like, and the pen to a patient, and just have them make notes as I'm going through things. And we'll definitely break down like some details about all that in a second. But do we feel like you guys feeling pretty good about the difference between the incident report and the SOAP note?
Yeah, I don't, that's all I write at work. So that's
Yeah, totally,
easy.
totally. Excellent. Well, I'm going to pull up an example of a incident report. And I found this at on the American Camp Association website, and I thought it was pretty good. It allowed for some flexibility, but we can definitely talk about some changes that we might want to it. Okay. Okay. Can everyone see accident incident report form up at the top?
Yep.
Excellent. So I got to Okay, so this is starting with all of the information that we want. So camp name, venue location, right? Address of the location, person involved, age, sex, and like affiliation, I guess I would say. So are they a participant? Are they another instructor, or is it like a bystander? Can be a really good way to break those down. And some of the most serious incidents that I've responded to have been bystanders, so that definitely is interesting. And then their personal information, address, parent, guardian, if they're a minor, all of that. Um, it can also be a good place to put in names of witnesses and contact information, so they can, attest to the care that you provided. Um, or, shed more light on what happened in the incident. And then we could look at the type of incident. Behavioral, I think that's very catered towards like young kids. Like there was an emotional outburst, and then these actions needed to be taken. Um, and I think that probably becomes. I mean, that definitely becomes more important in with young kids for sure. But illness is definitely one that a box that we can check on there as well, and then like the date and then the time that you learned about the incident. Because sometimes, especially if we're dealing with some kid has a stomach illness and they're uncomfortable telling you about it and all that, we're going to report the time that we started providing care. Here, what I like about this is it gives a little bit of space for you to describe in detail what the person was doing at the time of the injury and what you saw that could have led up to it. I think we do want to try to keep these as objective as possible, um, and just be very detailed in it. And when I'm in the field completing this portion, I'll probably be more likely to make notes to remind myself about the big things that happened, especially if I'm the main person providing care. That definitely becomes important. Noting where the location, where the exact location of the incident is super important, especially because we're, in our line of work, it's like, okay, we were on this section, or, it's challenging to say we were on, this trail and this like generic trail and have that explain, some potential reasons for the incident. So, we want to be as descriptive as possible. We were out on the double black trail at Lebanon Hills before the two bigger but rollable drops where the incident occurred. Just like good levels of detail is important with the location. And then you can, make note of the activity, especially if there's a lot of folks that coach mountain biking, but also coach other things. And that's where we kind of get into, Terry had mentioned earlier about having like the incident report had like boxes and it said, were they in the water? Or I'm sorry, Terry, I can't remember exactly what
Oh,
all the
because I
options.
work for a hospital, it wanted to know, you know, were they in the hallway, were they in the bathroom, would they slip on water, which doesn't relate to being out in the field.
Totally.
Right.
And so there are, yeah, and there are different ones and for that we can cater them more to what we are looking for or for our specific sport category. And one thing that I don't know that I would put on this form, but would be more like internal on the back end. Um, so well, with all of the programs out in West Virginia, after every course, the guides, in order to get paid, would complete this Google survey, and like if there was an incident, they would basically like I mean, not totally type in the incident report, but give me a rundown of the incident in that course end report. And then like one of the prompts is like, okay, what could have been done to prevent this? I think that's probably where I'd have that instead of having it on the incident report. Because that could be that to me, that's more on like coaching after the fact, instead of purely documenting what occurred in your program. So important thing to talk about, I might take it off of the incident report. But then, what care you provided, what, type of supplies you used and how you went through all the steps. And this is all for protecting us. And the big thing, I'll have to check my notes in a second here, but the big thing that I would make sure is on the incident report is a refusal of care signature. So very often we have like, I mean, taking a pedal or a chainring to the shin is like, it happens with a degree of regularity, um, it's a more common incident. And so often, people are just like, no, I'm good. Like, you don't have to do anything. The bleeding stopped. It doesn't hurt that bad. We're fine. Um, and you can still complete an incident report for that, pedal to the shin, probably a minor injury. Um, but I offered these things and they refused those things. And then again, it's about protecting and documenting what you did as a coach, or protecting yourself and documenting what you did as a coach. So what else would you guys include on your incident reports that's not necessarily on this one? Did you notice anything?
Um, weather condition.
Huge, especially
Yeah,
for our industry. Yes,
yeah.
Terry. How detailed would you go with the weather description? Would it be like check boxes or would it be like a blank space?
Well, because I can't change our incident report, right? So I just
Mhm.
write it in.
Cool.
But if we ride all winter, so if it's icy, I'm gonna say that, you know, if it's wet. But I would, or, even temperature. So Matt, I actually work with adaptive riders. So, if I have somebody with a spinal cord injury and it's super cold out, that plays a big role in how well they're moving because they stiffen up.
Hmm.
So, you know, outside of what normally you would write about, that's part of what would contribute to something to
Yeah, no,
not be able to react in time.
yeah, I think that's a great suggestion because it provides more objective information about what may have led to the incident, for sure. Nice. Thank you for sharing that.
And maybe also, do you put in if damage to the bike?
You know, it usually we would handle that a little bit differently if it was, I don't know, so I guess I'm primarily focused on like the person's physical body
Well,
or emotional state. You could, I know that oftentimes when we have, like when I was working for REI, when we had high ticket, whether that was gear or like vehicles damaged, we would have a separate report for that. That would, it's like vehicle incident report or that sort of thing. So it's not a bad thing to have and be aware of. Um, I guess,
I guess I don't really
yeah.
mean the way it sounds, but more if they went off a trail enough and hit a tree enough to damage the bike, they're probably damaged as well. I mean, kind of more relating to them,
Yeah, and it
really that I care about the bike.
totally. I think because that would help you, like, okay, they broke their carbon handlebars hooking it on a tree, like that
Yeah,
speaks to the mechanism of injury. Like,
right.
yeah, so I
I
mean,
mean, kind of that way.
yeah, yeah. Um, I think, yeah, I mean, I don't think that would be a bad thing, provided we have enough space for it on the form. I don't know that I would necessarily like create a section for it.
Yep.
But like when working with other guides, it's like, okay, like how it can be a conversation about how we assess like the severity of the injury or supporting details for injury. If there's like broken helmet stuff,
Yeah.
definitely,
Yep.
definitely. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's more details, and as long as we've got the space for it, I think that that wouldn't be a bad thing to include. And some of the incident reports that I've turned into like my old bosses and stuff, they don't necessarily are they're not all filled in on lines, nice and pretty. I if needed, I will definitely like either grab another incident report and then like attach it so I can do extra details. Um, or I've been known to make some notes down at the bottom of the page because um, the more objective information that we put on there,
Yep.
the better. Yeah, cool. Well, that is what I would do for. Yeah, I think that hits all my notes on incident reports, and big thing, like especially if there's helmet damage, send that helmet with the paramedics if that is what's happening, because that is super important and that'll help them as well. And if you do that, I would make note on the incident report that you sent it with them as well. Excellent. Any questions or additional thoughts on the incident report form?
What about
Um,
pictures?
Oh,
oh,
so pictures, because like there are ways of like having having like digital incident report forms for sure. Pictures can help to support your case can help to support you as a coach. I guess I haven't used pictures. I think it would involve a conversation with the client, like, "Hey, do you mind if I take a couple photos of these?" Which at the time, depending on the severity, I might like avoid, because it could be another thing to like stress out our clients a little bit. But I mean, having that information is good, but I haven't taken those steps. Yeah. Terry, were you saying something as well?
Um, I forgot.
Okay. Come back. Let me know. Let me know when it pops up. Sweet. Well, let's dive into soap notes a little bit, and I'll switch screens. Okay, there we go. Sweet. So the soap note is broken down into, we're going to talk about the right side first. Well, no, let's talk about the left side first. Change my mind, because that's where we start, right? So this one is cool because it does have an outline of the patient assessment as well. And patient assessments vary a little bit depending on the organization that you're working with. But it's great because you can add notes about those things as you go. You can also pass this on to someone else to take notes on. And this is going to be much more in depth than so like we're going to provide a little bit more detail on all of the things that we observe in the patient assessment on a document like this one here, because in our incident report, we there's going to be a lot of overlap. Let's just go there. There's going to be a lot of overlap, but we're probably not going to record like a variety of sets of vitals in our incident report. We'd be more likely to say like vitals were deteriorating over this time period or something like that. But so we can start recording here. But what I like most about it, besides being able to take notes on it, is it helps to keep me in line uh, when I'm going through these like potentially pretty stressful situations. So we'll be able to record all of this information. Definitely we'll check in on like the chief complaint and what we see as the mechanism of injury. Go through all of these steps, and we'll see where this pops up on the other side, and make a couple little notes about the allergies, pertinent medical history, all of that. And what I liked about this one is we right along this line here, we've got like a little cut, because this right side is what we're going to end up passing on to definitive medical care when the time, if that time comes. So patient address, all that same sort of information. Talk about mechanism of injury in our subjective portion. So these are the things that, it's maybe a little bit more in line with the participants' story of the events and like what they're feeling, like what makes the injury worse or what makes it feel better, or all of that sort of stuff. So it's the things that we don't necessarily observe, but that's what is like being reported in a lot of ways. And the objective is going to be the information from our patient exam. So we'll include the sample history as well as, the sample history, allergies, medications, pertinent medical histories. And then and these, I write them a little bit differently than I would write an incident report. These are going to look a little bit more like a list. And, with medical training, basic first aid, and then, first responder and stuff, there's like steps for all of these things. And there's really great strategies for taking notes in a relatively concise way. So that's where all of this information is going to go. We have a spot for our vital signs. And I think one of the most important things to have in here in your soap note is the time. especially if you're providing care for an extended period of time, because that's also going to tell the paramedics or the people at the hospital what's been happening inside of their body in the last, maybe 4 or 5 hours, depending on where the incident occurred and all of that. Our assessment is going to be where we talk a little bit about our usability tests. Like, do we think they're going to be able to walk out? Do we think they're going to need a little four-wheeler or a quad to come in and pick them up? What do we think that they can do with the injury? If it's a wrist or like collarbone, let's say collarbone, we can swath and swaddle, stabilize that injury, and but they can probably walk out. We might, depending on their pain levels and how they're feeling, we might be able to walk out with that type of injury, and that's something that we can indicate there. The plan is going to be, once we get into cell phone service, we're going to call 911. We're going to tell them that this is what we need. This is our list of needed things. So that could be, we're going to need a lot more gauze or a lot more tape or occlusive dressings, any specific things that you need or that they know that they will need to have when they get here will be super helpful. When the paramedics get there, they're going to do their own assessment and all of that sort of stuff, because they need to also try to gather that information for themselves. But this is a really good way to get like a jump start on all of that, because it can make a huge difference. Have you guys gotten to I guess I'm curious, because SOAP notes are not something that I use quite as frequently as incident reports, very often because it's like minor injuries, pedals to the shin, a little bit of gravel in the hand, like that sort of thing. So I'm not using SOAP notes as much. But have you guys had to care for a participant for an extended period of time and found that, and busted out that SOAP note? No?
I have beginners for the adaptive.
Hmm.
So, Max launching, that was a different scenario. He's not a beginner, but they're, most of these are just tip overs.
Yeah,
They're
totally.
not, they're not the higher level riders that are hitting things.
For sure. And I mean, I think that like the most impactful incident that occurred in one of my programs, I mean, they were all beginner riders for sure. But one of the riders didn't have, or so one of the riders, we came to our like a stop out on the trail. They were looking like a little spacey and then just tipped over. And like full fainted, like combination of dehydration and like low blood sugar. And so like, I I want to think about like, hold on one second. I gotta gather my thoughts. So yeah, not always is it just like purely riding that can lead to our incidents, and that was probably one of the scarier ones, especially the fact that it wasn't at all related to a risky activity. Cool.
Another question, which is kind of off this, but do you know what safe sport is?
No.
So it's all about um um taking advantage of people because you are a coach. It comes to abuse, it comes to abuse of power, but abuse of, participants, kids.
Hmm.
Uh, we all had to get um, again, say it, certified in it.
Yeah.
But, one of the things when I was helping out with a community program last year, one of the girls, half hour in just didn't feel good, couldn't ride anymore. And, one of the things, a couple of the guys like, oh, we can get a Jeep up here and we'll drive her out, bring her back to her parents. And I was like, how about if you take my bike and I'll go with you guys?
Yeah.
One of the things is never have a young girl with two guys, right?
Totally.
Totally innocent. but that's one of the things we, never be alone with somebody. And, you know, like, don't have two, 6-year-old men with a 13-year-old girl in a Jeep, even that it's gonna be a 2-minute ride down the mountain, or it's
Mhm.
not, it's a hill, we call it a mountain. Um, but things like that go in there too, that person that doesn't feel good, how are you getting them out? Right? So, like,
Yeah,
you probably don't wanna take a 13, 15-year-old girl out by yourself,
totally. And
right?
yeah,
'Cause you don't
and
know.
no, that's super important. I mean, there's a lot of organizations, like when I was working for the Boy Scouts, um, there's and some other camps and stuff, there's like protection training. And like one of the things is like, multiple kid, like never one-on-one, never
Right,
ever one-on-one.
right.
And kind of in the context that we're talking about it, I think it still is super important because we're not only responsible for the physical care of our participants, but like their emotional care through these incidents, through not feeling well, is also really important, right? Like we can't be doing things that are going to make them feel less comfortable, because that's
Oh,
not going to help the situation, and it's going to be really negative for that kid.
but on
So
the other side, you wanna protect the person helping them,
totally, totally.
because you can't undo something that said that's not true,
Hmm.
right? So you also wanna protect the person, the adult,
Yep.
because you don't know anything about,
Yeah, for sure. And
so
the more people involved in an evacuation, like, I mean, not, well, there's a point where too many people helping with evacuation can make it go slower, but having more people involved and like having it be more of like a small group rescue um can be can make things go smoother, can help everyone, have everybody's back and like everyone feel comfortable.
yeah, I just think most people don't think about it's very innocent. I'll take them down,
Mhm.
super innocent, but something
But
you gotta be
we
about.
never know like what has happened up to to their life up to that point, It's
Exactly,
like it's pretty interesting. I've been working in elementary schools quite a bit, doing some substitute teaching and stuff. And I've had kids that have had behavioral problems, and I've talked with administrators, and it's like, they've got trauma involving these behaviors. And it's
right,
like I had no idea. And like it does, there's no way for us to know, so to know what their history is. And
right,
so like, or what they're willing to share. And so just like playing it safe and keeping
right.
everybody comfortable.
It's
um
just people that don't work in that any type of industry that you're trained for that, you don't think of it.
yep, for sure, for sure. Definitely an important thing to talk about. um Awesome. Well, and I figured this would be well, okay, so let's touch on um passing on to definitive care type stuff. um Most often, I've only had to pass patients on to definitive care through an ambulance like uh, 2 times. And well, no, 3 times, and one of the times they like full refused care, just like turned it down all the way. And so, um important things, if we get them on the phone, we want to be concise. And one thing that I have noticed, like calling 911 is like a stressful thing, especially when you have important information to deliver. So and there's scripts for this online. Like you can download a Soap Note app, and it will, I can't remember the name of it. I think it was put out by Knowles for a while. But you can download this Soap Note app, and it will take your notes and put it into like a script for for you to read to 911, which is pretty cool. So I always, use the notes, just or have my note in front of me. Um, and as we're communicating that, we want to acknowledge the things that are okay, like appropriate, if their heart rate is at within a normal range for their age, whatever. Um, we don't need to like tell them the exact heart rate over time. It's like the heart rate was consistent and within normal range. But blood pressure, assessed blood pressure was low. So we want to try to be concise, and keep things quick and to the point. And the scripts are super important. Part of the wilderness first aid training that I've been through is not just like practicing, splints and all that sort of stuff. It's like, okay, now we're going to have the instructor come over and you're going to report your SOAP note to them and tell them what you need. And it's like really, really fun to experiment with that and play with that. Um, and when I was working for REI, we would run incident scenarios a couple times a year with like all the instructors, and that was a part of it then too. So having opportunities to practice like our script can be really, really beneficial for me. It's just like preparing, becoming familiar with your patient assessment system. If you're familiar with the part where you're getting, calling the hospital or paramedics, it's going to be a lot smoother for you. So yeah, read out the SOAP note, report things that are normal, and then also things that you noticed. And another big thing, is, oh, sorry. Okay, so we are also able, like our SOAP note, we can send a lot of that with them. What I might do, and this is where I think photos come into play the most for me. If I'm sending documents with them, I'm going to try to snap a photo of those beforehand, so then you can keep them. They're there, and then that can also be really good. I haven't had them ever like take more than just the SOAP note. I mean, I've offered up like a witness statement and that sort of thing, and they're like, "We'll take this and get going." So that SOAP note and your assessment of the situation is really important. And then, yeah, so those are kind of the big things that I would stay focused on, and definitely, this is kind of an extreme situation, but let's say we have a rider, we don't have cell phone service, we have a rider that went off the edge of a steep slope, and they're like 40 feet down, legs really not feeling great. It's not super safe for us to go down to try to get them out. Maybe we need to tell the paramedics to bring a rope, bring like 60 feet of rope or something. That full list of supplies that we need is really, really important. But I think that's like the bulk of what I was hoping to talk about with this. Do you guys have any other thoughts, questions, or anything?
No, this has
No,
been great.
yeah, I think you covered everything. I mean, we talk about this a lot just because it's normal for us, but yeah, I think you covered everything.
Excellent.
Sometimes the discussion is what's considered an incident, right? And we kind of, the three-wheel bikes, you think they wouldn't tip over, they tip over actually very easily.
Jeez.
And if somebody just tips over going slow-mo, if I have to do an incident report every time that happens, right? So it's kind of, we go, if they're moving, if they're hurt, if they're bleeding, or if they hit something and the bike's damaged, then they did something enough to cause damage that we should say, because then we don't know. Because, if somebody's paralyzed, they may not know, right?
Mm-hmm.
They may not know they have something broken for a couple days,
Wow.
because they're not going to feel it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I like that use of, was the bike damaged? If so, I'm going to fill out an incident report for it.
Yeah, not that we care about the bike, but
Mhm.
more if they hit hard enough to damage a steel bike, then there was a hard enough impact that maybe we should write something up.
Totally. Yeah.
It's kind of one of those lines, but it's always, we've had this discussion, I can't tell you how many times, of what constitutes an incident.
Yeah.
Kind of like mono skiing, right? When you learn to mono ski, you're going to fall over like a gazillion times. You're not going to write an incident report for that.
No.
So it's kind of the same with the three-wheel bikes. If you tip over, you tip over.
Mm-hmm.
But where's that line?
Yeah. And I think too, there's been times when I've had, like working with kids, like kids kids crash for interesting reasons, you
Yeah.
know. And like as I'm looking at it, like looking at the feature that they crashed on or whatever, it could be just like a super small route. Like, okay, they crashed, they're not hurt. Is
Right,
this going to change how I teach this section?
right.
Maybe, maybe not, you know. So that's yeah, it's I think the big thing is like there's some consensus on when these things get filled out, because then we can start recording stuff and like
It's
tracking.
always hard though, where that line is.
Yeah. Yeah. Matt, have you thought about how, like, what would dictate an incident report for your business?
I mean, not as much as I should have been thinking of it. In two events that I've taken part in, not as a coach, but as an observer to kind of learn how the organization does coaching.
Mhm,
In both of them, there were really bad accidents, which makes me nervous and uncomfortable.
mhm.
Um, but I haven't translated that yet to mine. So I really, based on tonight and then just thinking of those incidents, I need to spend more time. I've probably gotten lucky so far in the clinics, one-on-ones and, very small groups. I think you can sort of control things and know, boy, we're going to do drops, but you're not quite ready for it. So let's take a step back and try some others. So I think there's also I've learned how to mitigate risk by pulling people back a little bit as opposed to letting them rush in.
Well, and Matt, you said maybe you've been lucky, and I was like, maybe you're just a good coach. Like, I mean, we will come across incidents, right? Like that will happen, but the biggest part of what we do is try to keep people safe. We shouldn't see insane numbers of incidents. Like in the 3 years that I was running the program in West Virginia, we had one major incident, and that was where the patient lost consciousness. Like any loss of consciousness, I was like major incident. Um, but we had like one major incident in the 3 years, and 10 minor incidents between all of our guides in the 3 years as well. So I mean, it's not something we can avoid entirely, but there's definitely intentional things that we can do to prevent.
Yeah.
So I'd say good job on not having, that problem in your courses for sure.
Good. But I'm still going to go a little more in depth for the planning. So that today was of great value for sure. Thank you.
Perfect.
Just a
Awesome.
little, like a little, it wasn't part of my program, but our road bike program, they had an incident, man tipped over, they checked him out. They were on the hospital campus, so had one of the docs come check him out. So all this was documented, did all the right things. Man said he's fine, family said he's fine, went home, ended up back in the hospital the next day and had a fracture, I forget where. But they did everything they were supposed to do, and it shows they were protected, right? So within our industry, we use that as an example. Like they did every single thing they're supposed to do, so they were protected. Which for Matt, it's just it's just an insurance policy, I guess.
Yep.
And yeah, it proves that we weren't negligent.
Right.
I think, and I think, early on in just like guiding in general, there was like accepted levels of, or like higher levels of accepted risk. And I think that things are really starting to change, especially in the mountain bike world. Like more people are seeking out coaching where their coach is going to help them manage risk, opposed to just like let them go, like Matt was talking about. So really awesome. Excellent. Well, that's all I had prepared for tonight. The next time that we're going to meet up, I believe, a couple weeks from now in early May, we're going to be talking about some hiring practices. I've got some feedback from a bunch of the other instructor trainers and their businesses. So yeah, that's going to be our focus next time.
Cool.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, yeah, and if you guys think of anything, feel free to give me a holler. But yeah, I hope, and if you guys do end up drafting your own incident reports, like Matt, if you put yours together, feel free to send it over. I love like comparing all the different templates, because I still have yet to find one that does like everything that I want. But I'd love to see some examples. And Terry, feel free to send me the pictures of the articulating skinny. I'm so
I will.
pumped with that. Oh, that's so cool
Yeah.
that you made it.
Well, I listened to your dial thing. And I didn't make a dial, but you'll like what I did.
Yes, excellent. The
Yeah.
dial was just a like,
Yeah, but it gave
just
me
a
kind of a
thought.
concept.
Yeah. Well, and so Matt, I did a make your own or make your own skill features talk, and I put together just these two skinnies, like progressionable skinnies, and I wanted to be able to connect them so you could like
Nice.
change the direction and stuff. And Terry did it, and I'm stoked to see it.
Oh, wait a minute. Can I
Oh, I
can I
might
share
be
the screen?
try going to options. I don't know if I need to change something on here. Oh well, I'm gonna get the recording wrapped up.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
let's
yeah.
let everyone see it. No, let's let everyone see it. Stick around for a couple extra minutes. Check out this sweet skinny if we can make it work.
Let's see. Yeah. So this is just a piece of it. Where is it? Said that's what I was gonna show. Let me get rid of this. Okay. It was there. Let's see. There it is. So,
Oh!
right, so this is not connected. I
Uh-huh.
dropped this in and then I recessed the other side and put a bolt in, so the bolt's hanging out a couple inches. So it just pops in so you can pull it apart.
And I
So
bet it anchors it in the ground a little bit too.
you don't need to, the weight of it is enough.
Sweet.
And then you can change the angle. So I
Oh,
have two pieces, I put the first two pieces as straight and then the next two pieces articulate.
that is awesome.
So I'll show you, that's the, oh, here we go.
Oh, look at that.
But I've since painted it and put grip tape on it just in case it's rainy or something.
Excellent. Oh, that's so
Nice.
So
sweet.
then, yeah, you can change those angles, but that roundness is, you gave me that idea with your clock.
Yes.
Yeah,
Is it a 2x10?
it's a 2x8.
Nice. Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that, Terry. I
So
appreciate
yeah, that
that.
was all your, so that's how you can change angles.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
And there's the PVC pipe too. Nice.
Well, I used that to paint. They don't need that. They had no,
Oh,
I was thinking that could be used, but I don't know if here's the pipe that I use for,
oh, the teeter totter.
yeah.
Cool.
So then that's the second level up.
That's awesome.
Or
And
you
is
can
that,
just
is
put,
that a 4x4 block?
yeah. And then I
Nice.
just double cutted it out.
That's cool. Oh my goodness.
Smart.
Yeah.
But just fun.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Oh, and then some bikes on the beach. Oh my goodness.
Oh, yeah.
It's all good.
We had the eclipse last Monday.
Oh, how was it?
It was fun. We had 90%, so we did a fat ride out on the beach and then sat in the parking lot, watched the eclipse, had a picnic. It was a blast.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's like a really, really wonderful opportunity, man.
Yeah. It was cool.
Excellent. Well, it was a great talking to you guys, and yeah, give me a holler if you need anything. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.
Sounds good.
Sounds
Thank you.
good. Thanks, Travis. Nice to meet you,
Bye.
Terry.
You too, Matt.